We're going to start the show talking some Alabama, the impact, actually, of Alabama's win over Georgia. 41-34, instant classic in Tuscaloosa, and we had recruits reacting. Recruits actually were shutting down their recruitments. Talk about athlete Daryl Johnson, who has been involved with other teams, but coming out of this one, he feels really good about the Tide.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, recruits that were inside Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday night, taking in all the pregame festivities with College Game Day being there, Miss Terry making the picks, Alabama rolling out to a 28-0 lead. It was quite a scene there in Tuscaloosa, and I think it'll eventually pay off on the recruiting trail for Alabama as they continue to push for some of the best prospects in the country. They have the number 2 recruiting class in 2025. Most of them returned. It was about getting those guys together, continuing to build that bond, that cohesion, and they all see each other playing in this kind of magnitude of game on the next level. That's why Keelan Russell is committed to Alabama. He could have went somewhere else for more money, but he wants to win a Heisman Trophy. He wants to play in the biggest games in college football. Alabama is the place where he can do that. And him and his family had a great time in Tuscaloosa. So did Michael Carey, the 5-star offensive lineman, number 1 interior offensive lineman in the country. He's been keeping Miami warm, keeping USC warm. But Alabama, being part of that brotherhood he talked about, the defensive players helped recruit him to Alabama. He looks locked in. Dawson Merritt and his family had a great time out at Alabama this weekend. Dawson Merritt is obviously been keeping Nebraska warm, but like the Crimson Tide to hang on to him as it stands now. They're trying to flip guys like defensive backs Mason Dunn from Tupelo, Mississippi from Ole Miss, and then Ivan Taylor from the Sunshine State from Michigan. I feel better about Mason Dunn right now than I do Ivan. Ivan's going to visit Michigan for the Michigan State game. We'll know a lot more about his recruitment coming out of that upcoming visit to Michigan, but Alabama, certainly a program that still remains in his crosshairs. And then so many underclassmen, Josh, that were there that loved it. They're eventually going to ultimately land a lot of those guys that visited this weekend, whether it's Anthony Tank Jones, the number 1 edge rusher in the country, cornerback or safety. Tylan Wilson is someone that I like Alabama for early. Zyke Helton's a former offensive line commit that was committed to Alabama that I like the Tide for. And I think that game, more than anything, Josh, just shows you the cultures of those programs. We're in the opt-out era, right, where kids opt out of bowl games if they don't make the college football playoff. Kids are transferring left and right. When you play at Georgia and Alabama, your expectation is to win the national championship every year. But there's been some years where they don't make the college football playoff, and their best players, those guys that are going to hear their names called in the NFL draft early, they wear those uniforms one more time and play with pride in a bowl game that they don't want to play in. And I think that showed up in that game last night with how hard each team played and how Georgia never gave up and how Alabama was able to respond to Georgia. And look, I don't care if players opt out. People can do whatever they think is best for them, but it says something to your culture if you're an opt-out team and you have a bunch of players that opt out when you stack it up against Alabama and Georgia. Their cultures are tighter than everybody's right now, and those teams battled on the field on Saturday, and I hope we get to see it again in the future.
All right, Alabama fans, talk to Steve and I. How you feeling about the big weekend? A lot of recruits on campus. What will be the recruiting impact from this? Not just for the 25 class, but also 26 and 27. Alabama fans, let us know how you're feeling.